Hey, this video is going to be about the Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, also known as Noah. He's a prophet that is common to, you know, all the Abrahamic religions. Comes from Judaism and the Bible, and obviously in Islam as well. And it says in the Quran in chapter 7, verse 59. Noah says, O my people, worship Allah, you have no deity other than Him. Indeed, I fear for you the punishment of a tremendous day. So according to Islam, Prophet Noah was a man that called his people to worship God and to stop worshipping idols. And when they didn't start worshipping idols, he was commanded to make an ark and to um, eventually get on the ark with a pair of each animal, and eventually they would all drown. It says that Noah he preached for 950 years, and eventually when he got tired of preaching, he actually basically cursed the people of earth. He said, "O my Lord, leave not of the unbelievers a single one on earth." This is chapter 71, verse 26 of the Quran. So the idea being given is that Noah, eventually, despite being sent as a prophet to guide the people to worship God, he decided to curse them and to pray against them, that God should wipe them all out. And of course, God doesn't need Noah to tell him to wipe them out. I mean, he knows that. He wanted to do that all along in the first place, then he's going to do it. But Noah, this is what he said. And the word was spoken, O earth, swallow up your waters, and O sky, cease your rain. And the waters sank into the earth, and the will of God was done, and the ark came to rest on Mount Judy. And the word was spoken, away with these evil-doing folk. This is 1144 of the Quran. So here we have a story where, all the water came and flooded everybody, and then eventually the water went back in the earth and the rain stopped. And that was it. It's over. And there we go. Noah is alive, not his son, not his wife, and none of the disbelievers. Now, the interesting thing is, this isn't the only place where we hear this story. This story actually exists in other traditions. For example, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which was from much before Noah's story, Utnapishtim tells the story of a flood very similar to Noah's Ark. And in fact, this is one thing that Muslim preachers used to promote, the fact that, hey, look, in every culture, or in many cultures in the world, we have this idea of a global flood. It's not only in Islam. It's almost as if, because it's been told so many times, it's true, right? Let's just look at the story and see, what are some of the problems we have when we look at this from a skeptical perspective, or try to be a little bit logical about these things. First of all, how did Noah live 950 years? Like, do human beings live that long? I mean, do you know anyone that lives that long? Anything close to 900 years? Not really. As far as we know, people live about 100 years. Christian apologetics, apologists, they say, well, up to the Great Flood, people used to live for like millennia. And then after the Great Flood, the lifespan dropped to 100. Okay, that's an interesting explanation, but it doesn't really explain anything. It's just another part of the story that makes no sense. I talked about the previous story, for example, the Epic of Gilgamesh, that has the same type of flood myth. Um, Now, the physical ark, is it, when you build an ark with the materials that you would have had, it would have been wood. Is it even possible to build an ark, big enough for all of the animals that can actually float just with wood? I mean, modern shipbuilding is an art or a science in itself, where, they use very high grade light materials that can build big ships, but the science doesn't add up with the wood. Where did all the water come from, and where did all the water go? In order for the ark to go all the way on top of Mount Judy, which is 6,800 feet high, is there enough water in the world even for such a flood of that scale? And we're talking about a whole lot of water, and for the ark to go on top of Mount Judy, how could it be a local flood? Like, what would block the water and allow it to not to rise up that high? Wouldn't it have to be a global flood? As well, if it wasn't a global flood, Why did he have to take, two of each animal, a pair of each animal, a pair of, monkeys and lions and whatever? How does that add up that it wasn't a global, it's not a global flood. I mean, who cares about the animals? Whatever. Kill the humans. You disbelieving people are all gonna die. But these nice monkeys and elephants and tigers, leave them alone. Like the nice animals, they're just eating tigers are eating the deer are eating the grass. The fish is swimming nicely. Just leave them alone, right? But anyways, yeah, we're gonna wipe everything out. Even the animals are gonna die. So you get one of each pair, or in the Bible, I think it says a few of each pair. Um, Another thing, if it was a global flood, there's no evidence for this. Like scientifically speaking, this contradicts geology, physics, paleontology, biology, anthropology, and archaeology. There's just no evidence for a global flood. I mean, we have evidence of the Big Bang, the background radiation. We found evidence of that, but we didn't find evidence for a global flood. Like, really? Because there was no global flood. Okay, so now what do apologetics say? How do they make sense out of the fact that if there was no global flood, then, well, what was it? Well, they say, well, because Noah, he said, don't leave a single disbeliever on earth. Like, get rid of all of them, wipe them out, all of them. If that was the case, then how could it be a local flood? Well, people say, well, maybe all of them lived in the same place on earth. Again, does this make any sense? This contradicts yet again, everything we know about archaeology and anthropology. We haven't seen any evidence for human beings all living in one place on earth. That makes no sense, right? Like, you know what I mean? Now, when he took all the animals, like, how did he feed them? Like, you got your, like I mentioned, anteaters. Anteaters eat ants. Did he bring a whole bunch of ants to feed the anteaters? What about the lions? What about, what about the animals which are carnivores that eat other animals? And what would have happened if, some of the animals got sick? Oh no, the female elephant died. That's it. Elephants are now extinct. I mean, did some of the animals get extinct on the ark? Like, um, what about the fact that can a population of animals recover from just like a single pair or a couple of pairs? Not really. You need a minimal viable population. Like, if you just, when you say endangered species, there's a certain threshold when it drops below a certain population. Like, that's it. They're extinct. They're not going to be able to recover from that fall. And then, you got to watch them carefully. Human beings have to watch them, make sure none of them get sick, try to help them out. Try to make sure nobody, that animal is well taken care of, so it can kind of, try to mate, and then they try to force it to procreate and to have babies, and they have to watch the babies carefully. But there's just, when you have such a small genetic population, there's genetic problems that arise with having such a small population. It becomes harder to avoid birth defects, and it gets harder to avoid genetic diseases, which is why, you need a bigger population. This is another problem as well with the whole Adam and Eve story. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Having only one male and one female, create the world population. It doesn't add up. If there was a global flood, the fresh water and the salt water would have mixed, and all of the freshwater fish would have died. Did he take fish on the boat too? What about plant life? A lot of plant life would have been completely devastated. I believe in the Bible it says that the flood was for 30 days and 30 nights, or 1 year even maybe. However long it was, I mean, this would have devastated the entire earth and all of the life on earth, right? I mean, it's an interesting God that wants to, destroy all life on earth like this just because of a couple of people were rejecting him. I mean, he got so angry, he decides to wipe out the entire earth. Like, does this story make sense? Does this seem like a infinitely wise and powerful creator, or does it seem like a spoiled child that needs attention? Like, which one does it seem like to you? Wipe out, even unborn babies, like even the babies and the children, the disbelieving kids would have all been killed too, right? Like, don't they deserve a fair chance to believe? Like, why should they be drowned to death? What about the fact that a lot of animals, again, like I said, a lot of, most of this points to a global flood. The story itself has no evidence that it's a local flood. This is just something that people want to say now because there's no evidence for a global flood. What about the fact that if this was a global flood, like, what about the animals like kangaroos that would the kangaroos have had to start hopping from Australia to Noah, to Noah's Ark, like, like maybe a year before the flood? Like, did he make a global announcement? All the animals on Earth have to now migrate to me, including kangaroos and marsupials and, sloths. What about the sloth that can barely move? How did it get to Noah? It would have taken a long time. And the turtles, too, would have taken a long time to get there. But once we got the turtles on the ark, it's all good as long as nobody eats the turtle and as long as, turtle doesn't get sick and die. And the polar bear too. Polar bears don't like the heat; they like cold. So hope you had like a refrigerated environment on there. And what about all the poop, like all the dung and the crap? Like there's gonna be a whole lot of crap going on there, and I'm gonna have to get rid of it on the boat. It's gonna be. This seems like it's gonna require a multi-million-dollar operation. With a team of specialists to pull this off, zoologists and like like veterinarians and all that. Like I'm not sure how Noah did this, but of course God with his he allowed this whole thing to happen. He blessed the whole operation so it would go smoothly. None of the animals ate the other animals, none of the animals got sick. But like, why go through this whole thing if the whole thing is going to become magic at the end of it? Like, why even go through the process of putting all the animals on the ark? I mean, just don't kill the animals in a flood. Animals can survive underwater. I mean, if you're a god, why make a story of putting them on an ark if at the end of the day the logistics don't make any sense? Anyways, so of course, there's no kangaroos that hopped all the way to. We don't have any evidence of kangaroos hopping all the way here. And then, if on the way back, did they survive? They went all the way back to Australia without dying on the way. And there was no, like, we didn't find any fossils of kangaroos, on the way back, did we? No, of course not. And then, at the end of it, like God is that angry and, is that upset about creating fallible creatures which he knew would not worship him, would make stupid mistakes in life, would be brainwashed, let's say, to worship idols based on their parents, or, they had some stupid idea, and they worship idols, and then God gets angry at them and then decides to drown them to death, and then on top of it, throws them in hell forever and ever? Or if not forever and ever, then throws them in hell, burns their skin for some period of time because they screwed up? Like, does this story make sense? 950-year-old man went on an ark with a whole bunch of animals. The animals didn't eat each other. The flood came, wiped out all of the earth. The ark ended up on Mount Judy. There's not even enough. Where did all that water come from? Where did all the water go? Interesting story. Things to reflect on. Does the story make sense? Alright, that was a fun video. Please leave your comments, and looking forward to making the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.